Welcome to John's Tarot. Welcome to you from wherever you may be, from whatever part of the world you are catching this podcast. I hope you're having a great day. Hope you're having a great week. I just returned from a trip. I was on a trip, went to Cancun. Unfortunately, Chichen Itza was closed, and I will have to take another run at it again at a later time. I was kind of disappointed, but life goes on. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the tarot and how does the tarot work and what does the tarot, one of the things that the tarot does. I have found that when I started studying the tarot, I ran into this thing called the Fool's Journey. And the Fool's Journey is a journey that the tarot takes you through, like one card at a time, into spiritual growth and self-realization. And then I had an experience with individuation, and I realized individuation is a Jungian thing. And I realized the Fool's Journey and individuation are the same exact thing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, how the Fool's Journey mirrors Carl Jung's Fool's individuation journey. So let me move over. I have a little prepared presentation, and I'm going to move over to that, and I'm going to work with that and see what we can do. Is there a correlation between the Fool's Journey in tarot and the Jungian process of individuation? I would say yes, very much so. In fact, I think the connection between Jungian psychology and the Fool's Journey in the Rider-Waite Tarot may be one of the clearest symbolic parallels between psychology and symbolic systems. Now, before we begin, I want to clarify something. I'm not presenting tarot as fortune-telling in the popular sense. I view symbolic systems differently, more as symbolic mirrors, systems that allow unconscious material to become visible enough for us to consciously engage with it. So let's begin at the beginning. The Fool. In tarot, the Fool is often shown stepping toward the edge of a cliff. There is innocence there, openness, possibility, but also unawareness. The Fool does not yet fully understand the terrain ahead. Psychologically, this is very similar to the beginning of individuation. In Jungian terms, the ego begins largely unconscious of the deeper psyche. We think we know who we are, but much of identity at the beginning of life is inherited in family conditioning, social roles, culture, survival adaptations, and persona structures. The Fool steps into life carrying all of that unconsciously. And yet the journey begins anyway. Now, what fascinates me is that if we look at the Major Arcana symbolically, it almost functions like a map of psychological development. The Magician represents the discovery of conscious will and agency. The High Priestess represents the encounter with mystery and the unconscious. You see, there's the High Priestess, and she does not allow the Fool to pass into the world of mystery that's behind her in the field of pomegranates. The Empress and the Emperor represent the formation of relational and structural identity. The Hierophant represents inherited systems and collective belief structures. The Lovers introduce choice and differentiation of values. The Chariot is a strengthening of directed ego consciousness. Then we move deeper inward. Strength and the Hermit begin refining the individual through self-confrontation and introspection. There's the Hermit. Eventually, the individual encounters larger forces. The Wheel of Fortune suggests recognition that life moves through patterns larger than personal control. Death represents transformation and dissolution of outdated identity structures. Death happens throughout our lives. Our old identities, old concepts fall away. The devil confronts attachment, addiction, compulsion, shadow material. We all have to deal with shadow material. If we don't, we'll be haunted by it. The Tower, perhaps one of the most misunderstood cards, represents the collapse of false certainty and rigid structures that can no longer sustain growth. And after the Tower comes the Star. Hope, reorientation, renewal after disintegration. Then the Moon. The Moon, deep ambiguity, uncertainty, symbolic confusion, movement through unconscious terrain. Eventually we reach the Sun, greater consciousness, clarity, vitality, integration. Judgment represents awakening to a larger totality of self. It's awakening to a deeper awareness of potentials within the self. And finally, the world. Not perfection, but relative wholeness, completion of a cycle, integration. Now, what's interesting is that Jung himself did not design the tarot system, but Jung recognized that symbolic systems across cultures repeatedly express archetypal patterns because they emerge from what he called the collective unconscious. In other words, human beings repeatedly rediscover similar symbolic maps because human transformation itself follows recognizable patterns. And this is where I think the Fool's Journey becomes so meaningful psychologically, because individuation is not simply self-improvement. It is not becoming perfect. It is not achieving certainty. It's cyclical confrontation with progressively deeper layers of the psyche, a wheel within a wheel within a wheel. Many ancient symbolic traditions understood this tradition. Mandalas, spirals, medicine wheels, circular temple structures, Celtic knots, rock art, these are not merely decorations. They often are symbolic attempts to express the recursive nature of life itself. Cycles within cycles, transformation within transformation, the individual life nested inside a larger movements of culture, family, history, and psyche. Modern systems theory might call this recursive or self-similar organization. Symbolic traditions often express it visually. And psychologically, we experience it directly. We cross thresholds repeatedly throughout life. Illness, loss, recovery, aging, addiction, transformation, relationship changes, identity collapse, renewal. Each time we think, this is the end. But often it is another threshold. And this is why I use the framework threshold map integration, because it aligns naturally with the Fool's Journey. The threshold, the Fool stepping into uncertainty. The map, encounters with symbolic structures, archetypes, patterns, guidance systems. The integration, returning with transformed consciousness and attempting to live what has been learned. And importantly, the Fool never completely disappears. Many traditions place the Fool both at the beginning and outside the sequence entirely. Why? Because every major transformation eventually requires another surrender of certainty, another threshold crossing, another willingness to step into the unknown. I think this is important in modern culture because many people are experiencing profound transitions without symbolic language to orient themselves. They think something is wrong with them, but often they are moving through an archetypal process. Humans have always undergone. Now, this does not mean every emotional crisis is mystical, nor does it mean tarot contains magical answers, but symbolic systems can help illuminate patterns that are otherwise difficult to articulate rationally. They can help create orientation within uncertainty. And perhaps that is one of the deepest purposes of symbolic systems. Not prediction, not illumination, not control, but conscious participation. Not escape from mystery, but learning how to move through mystery with greater awareness. And perhaps that is what the Fool ultimately teaches us. Not certainty, but the courage to continue the journey consciously. So that is my little program on the tarot and individuation and the journey and the Fool's journey. And the tarot can really enlighten your journey by giving you symbolic imagery. Now, I'm going to ask the tarot a question. All this came about because I wanted to know, how was this working in my life? I encountered it when I encountered individuation, and I noticed the connection between individuation and the Fool's journey. And I said, man, there's something here. I got to take a look at this. So we're going to ask the tarot a question. I wrote the questions down here. What can someone expect what can someone expect if they start on the Fool's journey? My ability to read tarot is a gift, an expression of divine love, and I'm here to share it with you in that same spirit. It's just going to do simple 3 cards. These are short. If you want more detail, I have a more detailed explanation back on John's Soul Awakens Series, and it's on my webpage. If you go back into go on my webpage, you can find the whole series there. So, what can someone expect if they embark on the Fool's journey? What can someone expect if they embark on this Fool's journey? We did that last week, and we got quite a good answer. But what can someone expect if they embark on the Fool's journey? And all this had to come about because I want to understand how tarot worked. I got such weird experiences. So what can someone expect if they embark on the Fool's journey? All right, we'll cut the deck. First card, Truth, the Ace of Swords. They can expect truth and piercing through falsehood. You see the sword and the crown and the wreath, and that usually indicates truth. It's the beginning of a journey of truth. We all live, I think, with certain levels of illusion regarding our personality and our deeper psyche. If you're going to embark on this journey, you're going to pierce through your illusions, and truth will be revealed about who you truly are. Sometimes you are a little different, many times very different than who you think you are. Second card would be the 8 of Swords. In the 8 of Swords, we see a woman surrounded by swords and blindfolded. And many people in our society do not embark upon this journey. And they're blindfolded to the truth. You see the swords all around her. And if you embark on this journey, the blindfold is going to come off. And you will see the truth of how your own development progresses and who you truly are within the world and where you truly fit within the universe. And you'll gain a different perspective. That is often a card, the 8 of Swords of perspective. You will gain a new perspective is what you can expect. So truth and a new perspective. And then the final card is the 7 of Swords. The 7 of Swords, you see a man with 2 sets of swords on his shoulder, and that's usually a card of dishonesty, of, how can I say it? There is a saying that I learned in a 12-step organization. The saying is, do not bullshit thyself.
Oh, far out, man.
Yes. And that is what this card is trying to say. If you embark on this journey, you will not bullshit yourself. You will know the truth, and you will stop being subject to the lies you tell yourself. So, for this week, I want to thank you very much.
Goodbye, Professor Marvel, and thanks
my pleasure. This whole week, I am going to do, I got 2 more episodes to do, and I'm going to do episodes on how does tarot work. And this was the first in that series, a 3-part series, 10-minute series, on how the tarot works. It works by activating certain recessive traits within us all, so that it brings up the subconscious so we can examine it consciously. So until I see you next time, be careful, be cool, be kind. Remember, have courage, find faith, and I'll talk to you all again soon. Okay, bye-bye.